Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the JD Rucker Show. If you are watching the evening show, which starts at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, then awesome. If you're watching the daytime show, which starts at various times depending on what's happening in the news, then that's awesome as well. But either way, you should find me wherever you want to find me, whatever platforms you use, Rumble, X, YouTube, BitChute, all the various networks, all the various areas where the show's broadcast. You can find all those, plus my websites, plus my socials, and even my sponsors. You can go to jdrucker.com/find, jdrucker.com/find. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. Hello, my friends, and welcome to an extra special Saturday evening broadcast of the JD Rucker Show, or technically it's Sunday morning if you are on the East Coast. Either way, it's not a show that I normally do, but there was a couple of stories. One in particular, and then another one starting yesterday, that I didn't really get to this week that I've been wanting to get to. And so we're going to get to it today. Call them leftover stories, but they are both extremely important, very relevant, and I needed to give them enough time. Generally I like my segments to be anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes, occasionally longer if it's a big topic. For both of these particular stories, it's going to be, I'm sure, longer than 8 minutes, probably, at least for the artificial Superintelligence one. That's probably going to be a long one. 20, 30, 40 minutes maybe. We'll see. The Chuck Schumer story, that one's also necessary, and I thought, hey, if I'm going to be doing one story, I might as well do at least two. It was an oddly big day, news day for a Saturday, though. We had President Trump yesterday invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to allow him to basically take the invaders, violent wartime invaders, and we are at war. This is a border invasion that's been taking place for the last 4 years. So using this, he wants to try to deport the violent criminals such as Tren de Aragua gang members. Well, an Obama judge, a very woke Obama judge, with the assistance of the ACLU and a couple of other leftist groups, decided, hey, you know what, you can't do that. And the funny part is they actually filed, or were getting in motion preemptively this suit before President Trump even filed his executive order to deport them. The judge went so far as to say, you've got five gang members. If you have already tried to deport them, even if they're in the air, turn that jet around and bring them back, because you can't deport them. That's how idiotic and radical these people are. They want to take criminals of all sorts, armed robbers, rapists, murderers, and they want to bring them. We have an opportunity to get rid of them. He wants them, this woke judge wants them here in the United States. He wants them among us. He wants them to, I don't know, kill people. I mean, I don't understand, because they're keep in mind their rationale for this, the ACLU, the judge, and everybody else, their rationale for opposing this is that, number one, we're not at war, and that's idiotic to say, because there was an invasion up until President Trump got into office, where thousands of foreign nationals were crossing our borders illegally. That's an invasion. Yes, we are at war. Number two, their claim is that by allowing this to happen, that means that President Trump is going to start deporting all the Venezuelans. Doesn't matter, gang member, not gang member. If you're a Venezuelan, you're out of here. You can't make this up. This is their thinking. And the sad part is that I don't know if this judge is corrupt. I don't know if he's being blackmailed. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Democrats or globalists or whoever, somebody's got some dirt on him. There's no way that a judge would truly believe that President Trump is going to just start deporting a bunch of Venezuelans randomly. It's been very clear all the way through, and we're not like, it's not day one, we're in month 2 now, almost month 3 of the Trump administration. And he's been very, very clear, as has Tom Homan and everybody else, we are deporting the dangerous criminals. That's it. There's no evidence that they've deported, random Venezuelan American citizen number 1 or 18 or 37. That's just not happening. It has not happened. So for this judge to make such a ruling, to say, oh, turn that plane around, bring it back here. I mean, again, and what is his name? Hold on, I got to find his name. His name is, should have had this, sorry. His name is Chief U.S. District Judge James Boasberg, Boasberg. Judge James Boasberg is either full-blown compromised. I'm talking like they've got some dirt on him to force him to make such an egregiously wrong ruling, or he is just full-blown, he's just gone. I mean, brainwashed. Like what happens when especially these radical leftists, when they get truly brainwashed by the wokeness, by the whatever, their intelligence level drops. I'm talking like kind of, shockingly bad, shockingly low. Okay. Like, couldn't answer questions on that old game show. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? Yes, even a judge who's supposed to be, the top of the line intellect, once they get brainwashed, their IQ levels go down. They start making really bad decisions, not just in as a judge, but also in their personal lives. A lot of them will start, getting blue hair and weird piercings. They'll start doing just idiotic things, just really stupid things. I mean, moronic. And that seems to be the case here again. Compromised or really stupid, brainwashed stupid. It's one or the other, because otherwise there's no way that you could try to say that the President of the United States cannot take invaders and get them out of the country, that we must, as a nation, we must embrace the violent criminals. It's like, hey, here's a judge who's basically saying, hey, you like to rape U.S. citizens? Come on in. We want you. Here's my family. You can have them. They're all yours. I mean, that's what this guy's thinking. He has to be, because otherwise the ruling makes no sense. Sorry to Judge James Boasberg if you're offended by this, but your ruling is offensive, so yeah, we'll call it even. What else do we have today? I am on duty at thelibertydaily.com, so I probably should know the answer to that question. But second Biden auto pen discovered. I haven't read the story, so I'm not going to talk about it. But it's up at the top in the headline section of thelibertydaily.com. Be sure to check it out. Let's see, read through some of the headlines. Hunter Biden flees to South Africa. That's kind of weird. I think it was Laura Loomer that actually broke that story. Let's see, John Roberts. Oh, that's my video. Sorry. Marco Rubio declares South Africa. Speaking of South Africa, Marco Rubio declares South African ambassadors no longer welcome after the idiotic statements that they made. They really are in the FAFO stage of existence. South Africa, that's another one. I'm going to do a nice long piece on them here in the future, because that place is just gone crazy. I mean, talk about, I don't think I've ever seen a pendulum swing so far in the opposite direction. They were doing wrong before, and they're doing wrong today. And it's not equal, to be clear. I mean, the wrong they were doing before and the wrong they're doing today, these aren't equivalent. It's really, really getting ugly. Yeah. So, not a big show today. Again, only 2 stories. 2 stories, but both of them are important. We're going to be talking about Chuck Schumer's quote-unquote sacrifice. We'll see if it really was a sacrifice. And then I will spend a good chunk of time, the remainder of the show, talking about artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and artificial superintelligence, things that we should be very concerned about here in the United States of America, here in the world. And there may be even some biblical implications there, which I'm not going to get into, not today, but I'm sure we'll mention it. I will offer some suggestions, advice, whatever. I don't like just saying, oh my gosh, doom and gloom, it's all over, guys. The sky is falling, the fat lady sung, the cow jumped over the moon, whatever. No, I'm not like that. It's we can do things to prepare, to get ready, to whatever, and I'll be discussing those things as well. Let's do a short ad. I'll pick out one of my short ones. Let's see. Oh yeah, there we go. Let's do a short sponsor break, and then we'll be back with my story on Chucky Schumer. If there's one thing that people who are brand new to prepping often forget, it's the long-term storage meds. I think a lot of times people either forget them or they don't realize that they can acquire medications that can be held for an extended period of time. My good friends over at Jace Medical, they've got you covered, whether it's for chronic meds, for illnesses that you or your family members have, whether it's antibiotics, just being ready for whatever is going to happen in the world. These are things that you should have available to you if you're going to be preparing for self-reliance in the long haul. Go to jdrucker.com/meds, jdrucker.com/meds. Use promo code RUCKER10, the number 10, RUCKER10 at checkout, and you get a nice discount on top of that. jdrucker.com/meds. Did Chuck Schumer sacrifice himself to save his party? Now, technically, the short answer to that question is yes, but the reason that it's technical is because I'm not sure if this was really a sacrifice more than a distraction. We'll get into that here in a minute, but I want to address something up front. I actually debated whether or not to use the word sacrifice even in this segment, the segment headline, because a lot of times we view the word sacrifice, and when people make sacrifices, they're doing so for noble causes. This was not a noble sacrifice by any means. This is more akin to a pagan ritual where they sacrifice people to their so-called gods. This is not a positive thing, and unfortunately, it's not a positive outcome. In reality, the best outcome would have been if the Democrats stood strong in their convictions against the continuing resolution, which they voted in favor of course, the last few times. They've said that shutting down the government is bad, and then they were going to shut down the government. They threw up some test balloons to see if any of their narratives stuck. They tried the whole, well, we're offering a 30-day CR to keep the government open so that we have time to negotiate. And hey, all we want are just a few amendments. That's all, and it'll be great. And you guys will still be in control, and it's fine. And Republicans were like, no. John Thune technically allowed some amendment votes, but that's just to speed up the process on Friday, but that's a different story. Anyway, the final test balloon they sent out was Chuck Schumer coming out and saying, we are going to oppose this. We're going to allow the shutdown, and he tried to pin it as Trump's shutdown and Musk's shutdown and the Republicans shut down, and they said, hey, does anybody believe us? And legacy media ran with the narrative for a bit, and the resounding answer was no, this is the Schumer shutdown if it's allowed to go through. So then he or somebody, maybe somebody above him, made the command decision of, let's just go ahead and push forward, live to fight another day. Let's not take any more slings and arrows to the gut by getting blamed for shutting down the government and then watching Elon Musk continue with Doge even through the government shutdown. And if anything, shut down even more. It would have been awesome. I wanted the shutdown that was blamed on the Democrats, but they, the uniparty swamp, the globalist elite cabal, the deep state, the Democrat Party, and Chuck Schumer in particular, recognized that they weren't going to win this. So to save the party, he said, okay, fine. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be the bad guy, and you guys are going to attack me, and it's going to be brutal, and it's going to help to elevate the Democrat Party by focusing the anger on one person instead of the Democrat Party itself. Had the shutdown gone through, then the Democrat Party would have been blamed, and that would have been poor for their party. Now, the shutdown was averted thanks to Chuck Schumer, and as a result, Democrats get to condemn him and call him names, and Nancy Pelosi's out there, and AOC is going to run against him, and Hakeem Jeffries is being coy, and legacy media is out there saying all these bad things about Chuck, and Chuck's like, oh, this sucks. And it does suck, but he lost. And I think that at the end, they told him, look, you're still Senate Minority Leader. You still have this legacy. The party is toast in 2026 if you allow this shutdown. Either you find us 8, 9, 10 Democrats to vote for it, and if you can't, then you're going to have to do it. And that's how I think it went down. And he finally begrudgingly said, okay, fine, this makes sense. I get it. I'm not running for election this year. Hopefully, we can make some empty threats about replacing him. This is what he's thinking. Maybe they'll make some empty threats, but then we'll move on to the next thing in the news cycle, and everybody will forget that I endorsed the continuing resolution with objection, but still voted in favor of letting it pass through. And it did. I mean, he didn't vote for it to pass, but he did vote for it to be allowed to pass to avoid the legislative filibuster. So, was it truly a sacrifice? Sort of. And we'll see. I mean, it might. Look, I don't know if he realized that there would be this much anger. He knew there would be anger. He just thought that maybe he could talk his way out of it and sell the notion that it would have been worse off for the nation had he allowed the shutdown. It would have been better off for President Trump. And this part's true, by the way. It would have been better off for President Trump with a short-term shutdown that would allow Doge to get to see, hey, all right, government shut down. What's going to fall apart? Oh, my gosh, nothing fell apart. So that means that we need to cut more because, we let 17% of the government not operate for 2 weeks and nobody even noticed, except for, of course, the employees, the government workers. So this was, unfortunately, a very good strategic move across the board for everybody, including Chuck Schumer to some extent. If he can survive this, if he is able to retain his status as minority leader, then this will be a hiccup that everybody will forget here in a few days, a week, maybe a month. I don't know how long, but at some point he'll be able to recover. If they want to press this, and there seems to be an appetite for that, then this could be the end for Chuck Schumer. We'll see. But let's look at some reactions. This one comes to us from Matt Vespa over at Town Hall. Says, CNN commentator said, I've never seen so much anger directed at Chuck Schumer. And they're referring to Van Jones, one of my favorite CNN commentators. Seriously, I'm not being sarcastic here. I actually do enjoy listening to Van Jones, not because I agree with him, because I don't, but because he does tend to have a more honest reaction to things. I'm not saying he's an honest person. I'm saying that he's not very good at hiding things. He just sort of lets it out. It's kind of fun to watch, especially when they lose so badly. According to the article, Senator Chuck Schumer was seen as the only person to handle the reins of the Senate Democrat caucus after Harry Reid died. Now, everyone is looking to vote this guy off the island. In less than a week, a man who was respected and revered among the rank and file on the Hill among congressional Democrats is being primed to end up like Robespierre for refusing to get into a shutdown fight with the Trump White House. New York liberals' reasons were clear and rational. This wouldn't be a normal shutdown, as Trump would likely use the shutdown to accelerate the whittling down of the federal workforce. The continued resolution was clean, and there was nothing really to oppose here other than, we don't like Trump. That's not a sane reason to shut down government. More importantly, there was no message or plan for a shutdown fight. The disunity among congressional Democrats is unprecedented. Even Nancy Pelosi was urging all-out rebellion against Schumer before the Senate advanced and passed the CR yesterday. CNN's Van Jones noted how the fallout from this will not be pleasant for Mr. Schumer, who he says is enduring a volcanic eruption of outrage.
Then how angry are Democrats at Leader Schumer?
I've never seen this level of volcanic anger at a Democrat ever.
Ever?
Ever.
Wow.
I mean, we could be grumpy, we can be frustrated with each other. There is a volcanic eruption of outrage at Leader Schumer because we want a Mitch McConnell. I remember when Obama had all the cards. Mitch McConnell drove Obama nuts, twisted his pinky, broke his kneecaps, and got stuff done for Republicans when they shouldn't have gotten an inch. They got miles. We have a Senate a majority leader who is beloved in this party, but we want somebody who's going to stand up to this bully. Stand up to this bully. Do something. And if you shut the government down and it gets a little bit crazy, at least some politics is about the rationality. There's an emotional need to stop Donald Trump and Elon Musk from running over this party. And I think Chuck Schumer has radically misread the room.
Radically misread the room.
I know I said I like Van Jones because he does seem to wear his emotions on his sleeve and come out and say things that he shouldn't, but he's not necessarily the smartest, even amongst leftists. He's kind of dumb, and I think he's falling for this one. I think he actually said how he feels and that he's falling for it. Folks, this is a con, to be clear. Okay, all this outrage, they know, well, most of them know. Maybe there's some idiots like AOC who don't know, but most of them know that he fell on his sword, that had the CR not passed, had the government been shut down, then all of them would have been blamed for it. All of them would have suffered some sort of consequence from their constituents. I'm not saying they all would have been primaried out or lost their next election or whatever, but some of them probably would have. Okay, I know it's early, and it's hard to predict what's going to happen in a year and a half from now in an election. But this would have been very bad for the Democrats in the midterms, and they need as much positive as they can get right now because right now they have no momentum. So they know, they get it. This is all political theater. Do you think Nancy Pelosi is really truly outraged? No, she's not. She's not outraged. She's just like, okay, behind the scenes, she's like, Chuck, I just finished my fourth vodka. Thank you so much. You really took one for the team there, buddy. I'll remember you. Paul and I, you got our best wishes and all that stuff. Bye. That was the worst Nancy Pelosi impersonation of all time. And I'm proud of that fact. Speaking of idiots, though, AOC, allegedly, again, keeping in mind this is all theater, AOC, dimwit, is in the process of considering a rise in power because this lady is maybe the most power-hungry person in politics since Hillary Clinton, which is saying a lot. According to Headline USA, AOC plotting coup against Chuck Schumer? Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez may mount a primary challenge against Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, her fellow New York Democrat, after she rebuked him for voting for a Republican-backed stopgap spending bill. I think there is, I'm not going to try an impersonation here, I think there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal, she said while addressing reporters at the DNC's annual policy retreat in Virginia, according to CNN. Her comments came after Schumer, we know where her comments came from. Senate Democrats can vote no, she added. We can correct course, and that is the most important thing in front of us right now. I'm not even sure what she's referring to because I skipped ahead. Bottom line is that, she's allegedly, she's definitely running. Okay, she's definitely gonna make a play for Senate to become a senator in New York. The question is whether or not she's ushered in by Chuck Schumer or whether she has to fight him. Now, if she has to fight him, there's a chance that she might, she'll read the tea leaves. Her Justice Democrat cronies will say, hey, we've done some quiet polling and it looks like you're going to lose big if you don't get Chuck Schumer to step down and endorse you. And so I would see it possible for her to be able to do it, but that would require Chuck Schumer's willingness to engage in that regard. One more story. This one's by Rick Moran over at PJ Media. Did Chuck Schumer deliberately enrage Democrats in order to unite them? Now, I almost didn't talk about this story because it sort of paints him in kind of a positive light, but with your understanding and my understanding that all of this is kabuki theater. All of this is faux outrage, and they really didn't want. There was a, before I get to the article, there's a. I wish I had this visual. I need to find it someday. I've looked for it a few times. There's this. It's a 4-panel comic. Try to picture this in your mind. You got this man holding a leash with his little itty bitty dog. Okay, and the dog is trying to get at this other dog who's like a pit bull or something. And the owner of the pit bull's got the leash, and the pit bull's just kind of sitting there staring at him, staring at this little dog who's like getting pulled back by the owner. And then it cuts to the next panel, and the owner of the little dog ends up accidentally dropping the leash. And the little dog looks down, and the pit bull's looking at him. And the little dog goes over and grabs the leash, hands it back to the owner, and then goes back to pretending to want to fight the pit bull. That's what this is. This is theater. This is Democrats who are very, breathing a sigh of relief that Chuck Schumer did what he did, and then going out and attacking him for it. They didn't want a shutdown. I mean, they didn't care. To be clear, every decision made by the Democrats, and probably 98% of decisions made by Republicans, to be fair, but 100% of the decisions made by Democrats on Capitol Hill are all about their own survival, their own grasp of power. That's it. They will sacrifice anything, anybody else, not themselves, but anybody else, to retain power and to advance power and to gain more power. If it will destroy the country, destroy the world, they don't care. They don't care. All right, back to this article, though. In the weeks leading up to the pivotal vote on the GOP's continuing resolution, the national media and Democrats were wringing their hands over the party's disarray. Democrats in disarray, claimed the Norfolk Daily News. Democrats in disarray as Trump pushes through agenda, declared the Wall Street Journal. Bloomberg pointed out that no one knows how to bring the party out of its doldrums. Democrats are in disarray with no easy fix, the media outlet ruminated. Rudderless and aimless, the Democrats were in a world of hurt. To make the situation worse, no one was listening to anyone else. The idea on how to combat Donald Trump's onslaught went from the idiotic to the dangerous. The Democrat Party was well and truly stuck in neutral with no solutions, readily presenting themselves. At this point, party leaders in Congress stepped up to offer a way forward. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries believed that total, absolute, unanimous opposition to everything Trump proposed was the path forward. When the continuing resolution came to a vote, just one Democrat defected to vote for it. But beyond the vote, there was no unanimity for a strategy to oppose a determined president to implement his agenda. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer decided to vote for the CR and live to fight another day. Schumer believed that the political risk of blocking Trump's agenda far outweighed the certain negative blowback the party would get for not fighting hard enough to derail Trump's agenda. More than that, Schumer probably realized the outrage that would rain down on him personally from his Democrat colleagues in Congress. Schumer has spent a quarter of a century in the Senate and a decade before that in the House. It was not a surprise to him that his own party would turn on him. He's done a great deal of damage to the party, according to Ezra Levin, co-founder of a liberal group, Indivisible. Levin is organizing a conference call with the group's New York chapter and other local Democrats to seriously consider if the current Democrat leadership is equipped to handle the moment we're in. Even House Minority Leader Jeffries refused to perform the political courtesy of backing his Senate counterpart. When asked on Friday if there should be new leadership in the Senate, he simply said, "Next question." It takes a lot more than some backbench senators to dethrone the leader, but from a PR standpoint, it's an unmitigated disaster. Or is it? This is according to Senator Ruben Gallego over in Arizona. Anytime you have a failure, and this is a failure altogether, we as a caucus owe it to Democrats across the country and our constituents to look back and see, how do we get ourselves into this situation? Is it Chuck Schumer's fault that the Democrats would be politically punished if they voted against the CR? Schumer's biggest problem is that the party is hopelessly divided. In the House's near unanimous opposition to the CR, the Democrat caucus wanted to go in half a dozen different directions. There was no consensus on how to proceed beyond voting no. There's no grand strategy because a number of members will reject anything Schumer opposes. The crisis afflicting the Democrats is existential. and has little to do with strategy on opposing Trump. They have no strategy because they have no agenda. Schumer isn't stupid. It may be that he's using up his prestige, carefully husbanded over his 30 years in Washington, to act as a punching bag to unite the Democrats in any way possible. He certainly did that. However, moving on from there to developing a winning strategy is going to be a lot harder. Yeah. Very, very true across the board. Schumer knew it. Hakeem Jeffries knows it. Nancy Pelosi knows it. Everybody but maybe a handful of total morons. I'm not talking your standard Democrat level of moronic. I'm saying the total morons. Okay, you know, the Jasmine Crockett's and AOC's and Eric Swalwell's of the world. Those people probably don't realize that Chuck Schumer saved them, or at least prevented them from going completely over the edge. Everybody else in the Democrat Party, at least on Capitol Hill, does. They know, and you're going to see media attacking Chuck Schumer. You're going to see fellow Democrats attacking Chuck Schumer. Will he survive this? Probably. But there's a chance that he won't, because the backlash has been, even though it's manufactured, it has been appreciated. In other words, Democrat voters, Democrat people across the nation have felt the same way. They, too, are angry. They, too, don't realize, or not too. The difference between them and Democrats on Capitol Hill, other than the fact that Democrats on Capitol Hill, most of them are faking their outrage, whereas actual Democrat voters are truly outraged. But the real difference is that Democrats on Capitol Hill realize, they know that Chuck Schumer, what he did to prevent the shutdown, probably saved their party, whereas the idiot, stupid Democrat voters that are super outraged, very mad at Chuck Schumer, ready to fight in their own petty way, they think that Chuck Schumer somehow ruined everything, that he is somehow on board with Donald Trump, when in reality, had Chuck Schumer done what they wanted him to do, which is to allow the government shutdown and take the blame for it, that would have been far better off for Elon Musk, far better off for Donald Trump, and far better off for the country. The infrastructure here in the United States of America is, how should we put it, challenged. It's old. I mean, it was probably good decades ago, but now it is showing signs of age. And as a result, many Americans would be in a great deal of trouble if there was bad weather or natural disaster or some sort of, God forbid, some sort of attack that would take out the power grid for an extended period of time. Unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans do not have any real backup. I mean, we'd be sitting there waiting for FEMA or the electric company or somebody to turn the power back on. I am a huge fan of solar. The challenge with solar, of course, is that it can get very expensive, usually thousands, sometimes even tens of thousands of dollars to get a good solar generator and system. I have found a good one that is inexpensive, and I mean relatively inexpensive. It's still hundreds of dollars, but at least it's not thousands or tens of thousands. And it's the one that I use. In anytime there's challenges. It's also portable, so even when we go out, throw it in the trunk or the back of the SUV and go camping, go do whatever. It's always good to have a nice portable solar generator with you at the time. For me, I am a huge fan of the Grid Doctor. Go to jdrucker.com/solar. jdrucker.com/solar. And check it out. I think we're on sale right now. Well, I don't want to say right now because it depends on when you're watching this, but at least as of right this very second, there is a nice sale there. So go to jdrucker.com/solar and get you a Grid Doctor 300 today. The new arms race is over artificial superintelligence. It is upon us, and it is without a doubt far more dangerous than even the nuclear arms race. And I don't think, unfortunately, most people don't seem to realize that. Most people don't know how dangerous it is. And I'm not just talking about, Skynet and all this other stuff. I'm talking about what it represents against our society. And possibly, I never want to say a definitive when we're talking about Bible prophecy, not until it actually happens. But I would argue that ASI, artificial superintelligence, is very clearly depicted in the book of Revelation. We will not be talking about that aspect today. Just keep that in mind. I'm going to be staying in the secular perspective on this particular topic, though I will dive into the biblical perspective at a future segment, a future episode. Earlier this week, I was on with Allison Steinberg, who was guest hosting for Emerald Robinson on The Absolute Truth. And the topic, I wasn't expecting it, but the topic of artificial intelligence popped up. We were talking about Doge and Musk and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden she starts talking about how the Trump administration is pushing for artificial intelligence to be the leader of it and is willing to invest or to spend an investment of up to $500 billion, $500 billion on it, which I've covered on this show myself. Billionaire Larry Ellison, he's very, very acutely involved, as is OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, who has said himself that he is very certain that ChatGPT, which his company produces, ChatGPT will engage in artificial general intelligence this year. That is a development that has a lot of people concerned. Now, when we're talking about this particular arms race, it's easy for us to assume that it's basically the United States versus China. But we cannot ignore the reality that it involves a whole lot of people, a whole lot of countries, a whole lot of non-countries, just regular organizations, technological groups out there that are attempting to achieve AI, AGI, and then ASI. Let's start, though, before I get too deep into the weeds, let's go ahead and just lay out the very layman version of the definitions, just so that you know what I'm talking about. So we have AI. Everybody is familiar with artificial intelligence to some extent. It is basically, AI can achieve goals, semi-creative goals, complete semi-creative tasks with human input, okay? You can ask it questions, and it can comb through the internet and come up with solutions. And this is a very powerful tool that is in use today across the board. We see AI being used in so many different industries right now. I've actually used it myself from time to time to do research and to even write entire articles based upon videos that I had watched or even that I had produced. It's actually pretty good at it. Artificial general intelligence would be very similar to AI, except would have far less of a need and potentially no need at all for human input. In other words, it can expand beyond its normal scope. With artificial intelligence, you give it a task, and it's able to achieve the task based upon, for example, with a large language model like ChatGPT, it's basically trying to determine word by word what's the best next word, what's the most likely best word for this particular research paper. And I know it's hard to think like that, but that's pretty close to how we think. Not in a linear fashion. And we'll get into that some other time. As far as AGI, that's where it can get more creative, more independent. It can start not just answering questions, but even asking questions, finding questions that haven't been asked, and then starting to answer those. It would be extraordinarily powerful, far beyond anything that we've seen, at least publicly, so far in the AI realm. And again, ChatGPT and others have declared that they will be able to achieve or to break through the AGI barrier in 2025. Now, here's why this is important. Once you have AGI, you will be able to be essentially on the fast track to ASI. Artificial superintelligence would be, just as it sounds, would be like AGI, except with absolute and total self-reliance. I'm not talking about that it'll be able to feed itself energy or whatever. We're not. That's not the characteristic of ASI. I'm sure it would be a possibility, but that's not the intention here. With ASI, artificial superintelligence, you take the self-reliance of AGI and you give it essentially the wealth of human knowledge and beyond. ASI in this theoretical concept, which some are saying will be achieved before the year 2030. Others are saying just after 2030, but nobody's talking. And for a while there, just a couple of years ago, they're saying, oh yeah, 2050, maybe 2060. Now all of a sudden, the range that I've heard, somewhere between 2028 and 2035. So not very far away, 3 to 10 years. Concerning, yes, it is, because with artificial superintelligence, you are talking about a machine that would be more capable of solving problems, coming up with questions and answers to those questions better than the team of the smartest human beings alive. Perhaps better than a team of every human being currently alive. That is what it represents. And of course, if and when it's achieved, and let's just take out the if, because only at this stage, the only thing that could prevent it from happening appears to be an act of God or some sort of cataclysmic event, which would probably be an act of God, something that would take us back, take our society back, all of the world, take it back years, decades, centuries, or more. That's what it would take to stop AI from becoming AGI, from becoming ASI. This is an arms race. And again, when I say that it's more dangerous than the nuclear arms race, I don't think that ASI can be contained. I really do not. And again, I would argue that the book of Revelation seems to point in that direction as well. So we had this discussion. She brought it up. I explained how, we are not very far off from having robot dogs with jetpacks flying around with machine guns and killing people. That's a possibility, but I think the bigger risk when it comes to ASI, even AGI, not even going into ASI, once we achieve AGI, I think the biggest risk is going to be that it's going to work. Not that it's going to go out and kill us all, but that it really is going to help. And by helping, it's going to disrupt society in a way that will have, I don't want to call them unintended consequences, because I think some people are definitely intend those consequences in happening, but it will have consequences. People will quickly become obsolete. And I know everybody out there like say, oh no, you're not going to have ASI that can, or AGI that can dig ditches. Actually, yes, you will. Oh, you can't have ASI or AGI that could perform surgeries. Actually, yes, you will. And they will be able to do it far better, far more easily, far more accurately than we can. This is the society that this can create is one of pure laziness, complacency, dependency is what it really comes down to. We will become slaves whether we want to or not. And when I say we, I want to be clear. I'm talking about the bulk of society. I know that I will be living in a cabin in the woods if that's what it will take. And I'm sure many of you will find ways to avoid the brave new world of artificial general intelligence as well as artificial superintelligence. But the vast majority of people, including many of you who are watching, are going to see this. And they're going to say, well, I mean, this can help me with my job. Eventually it can do my job for me. Eventually it will be able to do anything that I would do or anybody around me could do. It can do it better than I can. And therefore, why would I want to risk not getting involved? Why would I want to not take advantage of all of the tremendous benefits that would come with it? Because there will be benefits. This isn't about Skynet. That's not the biggest concern here. I'm not saying that's impossible. I think that would come later. But at least early on, it really does come down to a loss of self-reliance and an acceptance of tyranny and oppression. We won't be prisoners in jails. We will create our own jails. There was actually a movie that came out, I think, that was very telling. It wasn't, I would say, extremely accurate, but some parts probably were. It was called Ready Player One, I think was the name of it. I think it was Steven Spielberg. I only saw it once. It wasn't a great movie, but it did show that society at that point had really gone virtual. Most people spent most of their time living in like basically stacked trailers stacked on top of each other, storage containers. Basically, they got their basic universal basic income. And they didn't have much, but they didn't have to do anything. They could just go to the virtual world and pretend like they were Transformers or whatever. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that is accurate, but the part of UBI really taking over, where people no longer have a need to work, many people would just become the quote-unquote useless eaters that the globalist elite cabal has called us in the past. And when that happens, it will be a matter of you will have a society that is incapable, or over time will become incapable, of thinking for itself, defending itself, doing anything other than what it's told. And I would argue that reality, once we achieve artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence, that reality is no more than one generation away. So, with that said, let's see. Right. I was like, that was a kind of a rabbit hole. The challenge that we have, and I expressed this to Alison Steinberg, the challenge is this. On one hand, I have my concerns about this artificial intelligence race. I have my concerns about putting people like Larry Ellison and Sam Altman in charge. I don't trust either of them. Okay, they're supposed to be putting this together and making the United States the undisputed AI champion of the world. Great, but what is that going to mean, and what sort of dangers would that pose to Americans and to the world? But then you have people like Glenn Beck and others who've said, look, it's going to happen either way. We can't stick our head in the sand and it's going to go away. If we, as the United States, if we don't take charge of it, if we don't win the arms race, somebody else will, probably communist China, and that will be bad for everybody. They will use it. They will exploit it. We will become their victims. They will control us. They will have the power to be able to take us down. Just to put it in perspective, I want to throw this out there because I do believe that, the concept that makes artificial superintelligence so much closer to reality than I think a lot of people realize. It really is the advancements in quantum computing that has me the most concerned, because once you take quantum computing, once they are able to truly stabilize it, Microsoft has had breakthroughs, Google has had breakthroughs, there have been some amazing breakthroughs in quantum computing just over the last 3 months that have been announced. Once you take quantum computing and hook it up to artificial general intelligence and power it with nuclear reactors, which they are currently talking about putting mini nuclear reactors across the country, especially in Texas, which I've covered. Once you put those three things together, quantum computing, AI, nuclear power, right there, that is ASI. That would be the requirement, the hardware requirement for ASI to be achieved. There's a fourth component, which is cooling, which that one I think will also be properly achieved as well. Bottom line on all of this, my friends, is that as this race heats up, my concern level goes up. Is it bad that the United States wants to be the leader? No, of course not. Especially considering that it is a technology that, as dangerous as it will be, it's more dangerous in the hands of our enemies than in our hands. And here's the thing. It does grow upon itself. In other words, once you go from AI to AGI, having possession and control over AGI makes developing upon AGI into the next level of ASI much easier. And once ASI is achieved, whoever achieves it first, nobody's going to catch them. Whether it's the United States, China, Russia, North Korea, Israel, Iran even. There's so many people, so many players across the European Union. There are so many players that are trying to achieve this. And whoever gets to ASI first, they win. I mean, there is no, you can't catch up, because once you have ASI, it spreads itself, so to speak. In other words, like, once you break through that advancement, I'm trying to word this the right way. We'll use it in distances or speeds. Okay, so let's say that AI is like a bicycle. Okay, you still need humans to pedal it, and it can go 30 miles per hour or whatever. But then you get to a motorcycle. Somebody develops a motorcycle. That would be artificial general intelligence. All of a sudden, the human doesn't have to pedal. The human just rides it, and it can go, literally almost 10 times as fast. It's like, wow, this is incredible. This is great. And they're speeding along, and guess where their destination is? Their destination is to get to that next step, which is ASI. ASI would be like a rocket ship. Okay? It would no longer be traveling along this horizontal technological plane. It would suddenly be able to go up into outer space. That's the gap from the gap between artificial intelligence of today and artificial superintelligence of the near future is the difference between riding a bicycle or flying a SpaceX rocket. Okay? And once you're in that rocket, doesn't matter how close the other guys were in their motorcycles, they're not going to be able to catch up, because by the time they get to go from artificial general intelligence to artificial superintelligence, let's say they're 3 months late, those 3 months, that rocket is already, halfway to Mars. And again, figuratively speaking. It's challenging, it's risky, it's concerning across the board. And we haven't even gotten into the whole biblical prophetics aspect of it, which I won't today. But first, let's go to this article real quick. Enough talking. Let's do a little bit of reading, just to show how serious China is. We've talked about America's willingness to invest $500 billion into this. What is China doing? According to Jesse Oberoi over at DallasExpress.com, mandatory AI education starts this year in China's capital. Later this year, students in China's capital will begin taking compulsory classes in artificial intelligence, according to a statement from the Beijing Municipal Education Commission. Starting this fall, students, including elementary schoolers, will begin receiving a minimum of 8 hours of AI tuition per academic year. Schools are given the option to either teach AI as a standalone course or integrate it into an existing curriculum like science. Artificial intelligence education will focus differently depending on the age. The subject is covered throughout China's compulsory 6 years of elementary school, 3 years of middle school, and 3 years of high school. In other words, they look at AI obviously as the future, and as is always the case with China, they look down the road as far as they possibly can. They want all 12 grades of school to have an AI element, and arguably, I would say that over time, that's going to turn from an AI element into an AI focus, into complete and total immersion into artificial intelligence. The only reason they haven't done that already is because we are still at the AI phase. I would argue that once we get into the AGI phase, whether it's with their DeepSeek program, which is the ChatGPT competitor, or something else, once they have achieved AGI, and they will, just as we will, just as many others will, once they've achieved proper AGI, I think they will expand upon what their students study in that regard. I'm going to play a short video. This will hopefully just give you a better idea of the concerns that we should have regarding artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and yes, artificial superintelligence.
For centuries, knowledge has been scarce, limited by human capacity, education, and access to information. But with ASI, knowledge won't be something we acquire over years. It will be something we instantly tap into. This is cognitive hyperabundance, a world where every human has instant access to infinite knowledge. Creativity, problem solving, and learning are limitless, and anyone can become an expert in anything immediately. As AI systems like O3 keep advancing, we're moving into a world of cognitive hyperabundance, where machines supercharge human intelligence like never before. This means breakthroughs in science, technology, and creativity will happen at an unbelievable pace. AI won't just assist us, it will work alongside us, helping solve complex problems and generate game-changing ideas across every field. The future isn't just about smarter machines, it's about what humans and AI can achieve together.
So to me, all of that is gravely concerning. The idea of, it really dives into transhumanism without using the word transhumanism. But here's the thing, I am very concerned about that concept. I'm sure many of you are very concerned about that concept, especially the idea of having instantaneous access to anything and everybody would have that. Because here's the thing, number one, that's not true. Not everybody would have it. Only the people that were allowed to have it would have it. And those who would determine who's allowed to have it would be the ones that are in control. So it's not just fearing ASI, it's about fearing the ASI gatekeepers, but that's a discussion for another day. But here's the thing, you might be sitting there listening to all that, and you might be thinking to yourself, that doesn't sound horrible. Or maybe you're thinking to yourself, wow, that's going to be really cool. A lot of people will think that, and I would argue that the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of people in Western society would think, yeah, that's something that I want. I'm not like that. Maybe you're not like that. But some of you are. And everybody else, you give them that option, that possibility. And I would say that many people would engage in that. But again, I keep falling back on this argument that many people are making, especially when it comes to the physical. It's like, okay, that's one thing to have a computer, okay, or a phone or whatever, having access to that stuff. That sounds like it's okay. But then you get into the whole other aspect of it when you have people like Elon Musk and other companies. Elon Musk and Neuralink gets all the attention, but there are many companies out there that are trying to put some kind of chips either in our brains or outside of our brains, connecting to our brains. Some are trying to get to the central nervous system and, through little like gadgets that they put on our spinal cord. Okay, there's all these different ways, right, that they're trying to hack the human being, hack the brain. And hacking the human being is something that the World Economic Forum has been striving for a very long time. But I digress. We say, it's just going to be about knowledge and information, and that might not be so bad. It could be okay. They're still gonna need us to do the physical stuff, or are they? According to a recent article from Breitbart.com, of course, here's the Skynet reference. That's inevitable every time. Welcome to Skynet. Google unveils AI models to power physical robots. This is from Lucas Nolan over there at Breitbart.com. Google DeepMind has introduced 2 new AI models designed to bring artificial intelligence into the physical world by powering robots. Google is not the only company pursuing this goal at top speed. OpenAI and Tesla are also designing robots controlled entirely by AI as well. CNBC reports that Google's DeepMind has unveiled 2 new AI models, Gemini Robotics and Gemini Robotics ER, which stands for Extended Reasoning, which are set to revolutionize the way robots interact with the physical world. These models, running on Google's Gemini 2.0, are designed to adapt to different situations, understand and respond quickly to instructions, and manipulate objects with dexterity. The company's goal is to have autonomous robots taking orders from AI without human control. Nothing concerning about that, right? Google has introduced a partnership with Apptronic, a Texas-based robotics developer, to build the next generation of humanoid robots powered by Gemini 2.0. Apptronic, known for its work with NVIDIA and NASA, recently received funding from Google in a $350 million round. Demonstration videos released by Google's Showcase Apptronic robot, equipped with a new AI model, performs various tasks, such as plugging items into a power strip, filling lunch boxes, moving plastic vegetables, and zipping up bags, all in response to spoken commands. While no timeline has been provided for the technology's market release, The video offers a glimpse into the potential application of these AI robots. And yes, I'm going to play a portion of that video here in a second. But I want you to stop and think. Again, we're at the early stages. And remember just how fast, how quickly the technology is advancing. We're no longer looking at time periods of decades. And in some cases, we're not even looking at years. We are looking at months before we see massive advancements. I mean, just look at your smartphone compared to what it could do, say, 5 or 10 years ago. Look at the quality of the video. I want you to keep something in mind when it comes to smartphones, by the way. The technology in your, I don't do iPhone, so what are we on, iPhone 17 or whatever? The technology that's in your iPhones is technology that was developed long ago. They hold back technology. Once they get cutting edge, awesome cell phone technology, they don't necessarily just throw it all into the next iteration. They got to have a reason for you to keep wanting to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade. So they take technology that might have been developed 2 or 3 years ago and they introduce it to the world. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is cutting edge. They've been able to do it for a long time. Now, the point I'm trying to make with that, I'm not saying that that's what's happening with these robots. I think we are starting to get a glimpse of what they can do. But in reality, if they are already able to pack a lunchbox, it's not going to be long before they can dig a ditch. If they can already, plug in a power cord, how long is it going to be before they can man a scalpel or a laser scalpel with perfect precision? The notion that we're always going to be needed, no matter what happens with AI, AGI, ASI, or robotics, or quantum computing, or all of the above, the thinking that we're always going to be needed for regular tasks, that you're naive if you think that. They will be able to do everything that we can do, and they will be able to do it better. I mean, look at autonomous cars, how far they've come. Okay, they currently get into fewer accidents than humans. They're already technically superior at driving than humans, and they've been on the road for a matter of years. And they're just getting better all the time. They're becoming safer. What happens when they get connected to, say, a city grid that's designed specifically for autonomous cars? Today we see an autonomous car, and many of us, I know I do, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's an autonomous car, stay away from it, it's going to kill us. It's irrational, though, because I know, statistically speaking, there's a far lower chance of that car colliding with me or running over anybody than having a human driver. But we still think that, except that's eventually going to be the other way around. Eventually, we'll be, riding along and be like, oh my gosh, there's a human driver, Hey, Google car, whatever. Whatever the name will be. Hey, Uber Tesla machine, stay away from that guy. That's a human driver. And be like, yes, we've been aware of the human driver for a long time. For the last 0.34 miles, we have kept our distance from him or her. We don't know the gender yet. Whatever. Just all this stuff really bugs me. Let's get into something that's going to bug me even more. Let's look at this Gemini robotics stuff.
We're bringing Gemini 2.0's intelligence to general-purpose robotic agents in the physical world. To be helpful, robots need to be interactive, responding live to your actions and your voice. They need to be dexterous to complete your most complex tasks. And they need to be general to understand things in your 3D world. And all of these capabilities need to work across different physical forms. We're bringing this together in Gemini Robotics, our most advanced vision language action model. Gemini Robotics is interactive.
Can you put the bananas in the clear container?
Notice how we move the objects and the model reacts and replans on the fly.
Can you put the grapes in the clear container?
Our model's low latency means it can respond live to rapidly changing conditions and instructions. This same model can generalize to all kinds of applications where you can collaborate with the robot live. Gemini Robotics is dexterous. High dexterity tasks are some of the biggest challenges in robotics.
I can fold the orange square into an origami fox.
That sounds fun. Why don't we try that?
Sure. Did you know that the word origami comes from the Japanese words ori, meaning to fold, and kami, meaning paper?
These capabilities are enabled by Gemini 2.0's spatial understanding of detailed aspects of things in your world.
I can point to where the eye should be drawn on the fox.
Most importantly, Gemini Robotics is general. It uses Gemini 2.0's world understanding to generalize across a vast range of real-world tasks.
Can you flip the red die so that it matches the number on the green die?
Many robots can execute predefined actions, but these movements are not predefined. The robot is reasoning both about what it sees and how to move. It figures out how to make the red die match just like we asked. And this generalization goes even further. This same model can generalize to tasks like this one that it's never been trained to do.
Pick up the basketball and slam dunk it.
Keep in mind, these are objects the robot has never seen before. But by leveraging Gemini 2.0's understanding of concepts like basketball and slam dunks, the robot figures out the task. We're now inviting more partners to join our Trusted Testers program, where we're working together to build the next generation of robotic AI agents. Learn more about how we're bringing Gemini to the physical world at deepmind.google/robotics.
That origami thing, that's what got me. And again, I know it's just origami, but we're talking about precision that might not be quite up to surgical speed. But how far off is it? How many years or even months will it take before these robots powered by artificial general or artificial superintelligence can actually outperform a surgeon when it comes to certain types of surgery, or maybe even all surgeries? It literally is that high of a potential. Sending them anywhere, sending them for space exploration. We've seen some SpaceX blow-ups lately, sending them for deep water, making them of a material where they can go explore deep water. There's so many potentials here, and I get it. And then, but to me, again, I'm still concerned by it. So I'm not that guy that just says, hey, it's coming, guess that's it. Nothing else we can do. That's not my stance. So what is the path forward for you and me? What can we do? Well, it really depends upon which stance you take. Just very similar to my perspective of, hey, ideal situation is that we could stop this, or that it could be stopped by God or events or whatever. But I don't think that's going to happen. It seems to be playing out exactly the way that it's supposed to play out. So the fallback there is if it's going to be made, then the U.S. might as well be the ones that make it, right? Similar, bad choice is available for how we handle this, how you and we as individual Americans handle this. I'm not recommending what I'm about to say, but I do know that there are some of you, many of you, perhaps most of you, that are listening to the sound of my voice right now, who, out of necessity or desire or having no other real choice, for whatever reason, you are going to embrace artificial intelligence, especially artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence once they come out. You might say, no, it won't be me, except we're going to be faced with very, very difficult choices. Like I said, for me, I'm going to move my family to a cabin in Montana somewhere, live off the land, no internet, no power, no whatever. I mean, I would much rather do that than go down the AI society world that we are rapidly heading towards. But that's not the path forward for many of you. So if you are going to participate in this near future ASI or AGI world society here in the United States of America, my recommendation is to go all out. I know that sounds crazy, but in this situation, you don't want to be halfway. There are no half measures that would work in this situation. And to be clear, there is a little bit of self-serving aspect to this. We are going to need, those of us who are not going to participate, we're going to need friends and allies who do. I would much rather one of you all who listen to my show, one of you brilliant, patriotic Americans, I would much rather you all be the ones that are elevated and in charge of this region or that, whatever, governorship of the AI district of Sacramento. I don't know. I have no idea what the world's going to look like when the crap really starts hitting the fan, but I would much rather people who at least embrace freedom take charge. So that is the self-serving reason why I would suggest, if you are going to engage in artificial intelligence, if you see this world ahead and for whatever reason you're going to participate in it, then I would recommend getting started as soon as possible. Start learning and understanding and embracing and figuring out, planning ahead, figuring out what you can do to be involved. Even I'm not saying go learn to code, but that would necessarily be a bad idea, even though apparently artificial intelligence is already taking over the coding world as well. Point is that if you're going to do it, don't try to stick one foot in that door and another foot out the door. Still remain as independent as possible, but do so from a position of strength. Be part of the AI world, but be the master of it, not the victim of it, because there will be many, the vast majority of people will be slaves and or victims or both of this AI society that is quickly approaching us. For those of you who are like me, who will not participate, who will refuse to participate in any form or fashion, it's time to become, once again, I said this for other reasons, but it is time to become as self-sufficient as possible, as unbeheld to government and to anything really as possible. If you can begin the process, or maybe you already have started the process, or maybe you're already full-blown off the grid, but it might not be a bad idea to get started, to come up with a plan B and to start engaging in that. Let's say that you're not. Let's say that maybe you don't have the resources to be able to just go buy a homestead in Idaho or something. Then it's time to do whatever you can to break free from this coming society. That means being able to handle things without necessarily the assistance of, say, technology. I know that sounds crazy, but we are talking about what could end up being a world where everything is controlled, and only those who fully embrace the coming AI, AGI, or ASI warlords, war masters, whatever, that you become as self-sufficient and away from them as possible. It's easy. I mean, it really is. It's easy to, for example, learn how to garden, learn how to control your own food supply as much as possible. Start researching, finding ways that if you are, for example, on chronic medications, finding alternatives that you can grow yourself, make yourself alternative treatments, or stock up as much as possible. Maybe you have a particular chronic drug that you can just get a 5-year supply of and figure out a way to keep it all good. Most medications, by the way, most pharmaceuticals do have a far longer shelf life, as long as they remain unopened, than just the length of your prescription. They say they like to keep you coming in every month or however long to get your prescriptions refilled, but in reality, a lot of times they could give you 5 years worth and not much would change. It's talk to your doctor. I'm not offering medical advice by any means. Just suggesting that there are ways to look into and find alternatives, get knowledge, learn things, learn how to survive in an analog world, a world where you're not you can't just order things on Amazon or Instacart or Grubhub or whatever. You can't just have everything shipped to you, or you can't go. Imagine living in a world where you couldn't go to Walmart without having, I don't know, maybe a particular artificial intelligence aligned mark on your right hand or your forehead. Be ready for a time when the economy is collapsed, when infrastructure is collapsed, when there's martial law or anything like that. I'm not trying to be clear. I'm saying all these things not to scare you. Please don't be scared by this, Because if and when all this stuff does start to happen, okay, then hey, that's a good sign. That means that we're close to going home, my brothers and sisters in Christ. So it would be a time to rejoice, even though there will be hard times ahead. But here's the thing, and I want to be clear about this too. I'm not trying to predict. It could. I mean, I said this could take a generation before all this comes to pass. Okay, just because we're advancing technology doesn't mean that it's going to be instantaneous. And by this time next year, it's going to be martial law or Mark of the Beast kind of stuff. It could be. It could be. But I'm not saying that that's going to happen. It might not happen in our lifetimes. Regardless, it still makes sense to become as self-sufficient as possible. It makes sense to not have attachments to governments, to really anything other than family and community. That's very possible. I want to be clear about that. So don't go out and say, well, Rucker said that the world's going to end, so I'm going to go, build my bunker and live in there and seal it up on a 30-year time lock. And, we'll see if America's still here in 2055. That's not what I'm suggesting by any means. But it is time to prepare for the potential. It would be much better to get everything ready, be prepared, be skilled, knowledgeable. You've learned how to sew your own clothing. You've learned which berries to pick. You've learned various fighting techniques. You've got your firearms or whatever. You have everything that you could possibly need, all the knowledge that you need. Having that, and then nothing happens, everything goes smoothly. AGI is a dud. Maybe they come to the conclusion that, ASI just isn't going to work. We can't get the quantum computer stabilized or whatever. If any of that happens, awesome. It means that we got some more time, and, just keep going about your life. You don't have to change everything, but it does make sense regardless of what happens with ASI or nuclear weapons or the next pandemic or whatever. It makes sense to start becoming reliant upon yourself, or to, at the very least, be able to survive in scenarios where today's amenities here in the United States of America aren't so readily available. It's not just for the fear of artificial intelligence. Again, there are Yosemite could blow up, okay? There's lots of reasons to be ready. So I would encourage that. But the most important thing, whether you're going to go into and fully embrace AI or try to avoid it altogether or whatever, no matter what, this should be, hopefully, for those who need it to be, hopefully this is a wake-up call that if things do continue to pan out the way they have been prophesied for 2,000 years, this should be a wake-up call for you, if you need it, that the Bible is accurate. The Bible is real. Which means that Jesus Christ is real and he is our Lord and Savior. So being willing to fully embrace him, to honor him, to believe on him, and to live your life in a biblical manner, to repent, to be joyful and helpful, but also to be humble and meek. These are things that you can and should embrace as well. And if anybody has any questions, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a theologian, I'm not a particularly good apologist, but if you do want to talk to somebody, you want to reach out, please feel free. jdrucker.com/talk, jdrucker.com/talk. I don't always respond very quickly, but I generally try to respond to everybody. So jdrucker.com/talk, that'll get you connected directly with me. And I'll answer the questions as best I can, and if I don't know the answers, I'll do what I can to find the answers. We're living in crazy times, folks. Getting spiritually prepared is the most important thing. Getting physically and even emotionally and definitely mentally prepared is the second most important thing. Otherwise, just look at it like things are changing in the world. It is a good best practice is to go out there right now and to get prepared in the multiple ways that we need to get prepared. Get prepared financially. Get prepared with the various supplies that you would need, the locations you need to be at, the relationships you need to mend, the relationships you need to cut off. Many of us have those relationships as well. Let's try to get your house in order, the house of your life. Try to get it in order. And it starts with giving yourself over to Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Well, that's it. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.